Show today. Any idea? Could it have something to do with a video I made very recently about the sick king? You might have seen it. It was episode 33 of Sync Quick News. Yep, the sick king. And now we hear that Trump, our Tiger King stand-in, has tested positive for Corona, the crown, just within days of a newly announced Lion King project. You see that? September 29th, new Lion King announced. Boom, 3 or 4 days later, Trump's got the Rona. I swear, the timing is so precise, playing out in tandem with a harvest moon, no less. Look at those timestamps. Is this some Wicker Man shit? Well, if only we could trust that timeline. You see, the White House keeps shifting the timeline of when Trump tested positive so they can try and walk back how bad they look for knowingly exposing a bunch of people.
The time continuum has been disrupted, creating this new temporal event sequence resulting in this alternate reality.
English, Doc.
Prior to this point in time, somewhere in the past, the timeline skewed into this tangent, creating an alternate.
That's a little teaser there. If you stick around to the end of the video, I want to show you something I found last week. Totally unrelated. It's about Back to the Future 2. But for now, let's just note that there is a real focus on Trump's alternate timeline. By the way, no part of it makes sense. Inquisitive minds have demonstrated that the data embedded in these two photographs has them taken 10 minutes apart. People are questioning this daylight picture taken after sunset. Trump's team has poorly photoshopped this picture to make it look like he's working by adding a binder into the picture, but leaving the original reflection. And if that weren't bad enough, they didn't even bother adding anything to the page he's signing in the first place. The whole thing has a Weekend at Bernie's vibe, right? It would almost make you think his health was in serious trouble. But, of course, you've got Boy Who Cried Wolf here. They've so muddied the waters around themselves by splashing around in the swamp they said they were going to drain, and they're such compulsive liars who can't even tell the truth on trivial matters that, of course, many people think he's not even sick at all, that the whole thing is bullshit. And there's plenty of evidence to support that theory as well. This woman, Hope Hicks, who was the first to test positive, testified a few years ago about lying for Trump. They've made a big display about how crafty and loyal she is, so any story that begins with her is suspect, right? And this news story has certainly done an excellent job of framing the conversation and steering the news cycle away from Donald Trump's taxes. What was poised to be the biggest story of the election season was instead completely sideswiped by this clown and pony parade. British folks have warned the Prime Minister getting COVID a few months back was used as an excuse for a surge in patriotism and sympathy, which led to further abuse of power. There's even a guy who predicted this exact scenario back in September, that Trump would fake this exact scenario. So yeah, plenty of reason to think this theory is true and that Trump's not sick at all. I mean, the car ride to wave at people, that's not what one does if they are both highly contagious and also a responsible human being. He might not be either of those two things. Now, while I obviously have no way of knowing if he's really sick or not, boy, do I want to believe that he has it and that it kicks his ass. And while they could release him from the hospital tomorrow and the whole thing could have been a PR stunt, look at these people. They made a show of how little they care about COVID. Here's Barr and Conway. They're chatting, no masks, right in each other's faces. And then he wipes his nose and then shakes hands. And now suddenly they all have it. Wow, shocker, breaking news. Who would have thought it possible? So while he could totally be faking, it's also just as likely that they fucked around in a pandemic and got sick. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that I think the theory of Trump being secretly deathly ill is the most likely. It's just the one I'm rooting for. This outbreak did start with a woman named Hope, after all, and I'm trying to be hopeful. And while I may not know the absolute truth of this muddy, full of holes story, I do know Sync when I see it. So, let's focus on the undeniable symbolism that is present no matter what the truth of his sickness or fake sickness is. First and foremost, what happened right away, the first thing they tell us is that they gave Trump a drug cocktail called Regeneron, the etymology of which is directly referencing the regeneration of the king. This is about as explicit of a naming and phrasing as you could get before just taking him to a hospital called Golden Bough or said Festival Memorial or some shit. It's just silly. Also, while Trump is supposed to be in the hospital, he sends out this email about Lion Obama. You know, just the exact thing I've been jumping up and down and pointing at wildly forever. Obama as lion Obama. Right? I'm like, fuck. Obama is also mirrored in the name of Hope Hicks. People had made this meme referencing the Obama Hope poster, and it is the most precise symbolism you can imagine it. It is surreal at this point. I kind of get why everyone is a conspiracy theorist these days. It all seems so scripted. We also have the mirroring of Clinton's pneumonia exactly 4 years earlier. We have the president of Notre Dame University getting sick from the same party, sync-winking to the Notre Dame fire, and by extension, 9/11. What else? Oh, we got the diagnosis going public on October 2nd being Donnie Darko Day. Donnie Trump, Donnie Darko. We have the connection that the Trump family's wealth is partially due to an insurance payout of his relative dying from the Spanish flu. Now, the 29th was not just the day of the Lion King announcement. I keep saying it that way, but it was also the day of the debate. That those two things happened on the same day is really very super significant. Also, on the 29th, David Plate sent me this t-shirt ad with Trump as the king. Speaking of shirts and the debate, you all know how Trump gave a shout-out to his Proud Boy friends during the debate? Well, apparently they associate with this clothing company, Fred Perry, using this brand as their sort of logo, so much that the company stopped selling their shirts in North America and came out with a public statement saying they want nothing to do with the Proud Boys. Well, that logo is a laurel, a crown. And you may recall that I made a big deal about laurel symbolism around Trump's August 27th RNC coronation and his predicted death that day. So, on the day of the debate, we have both Lion King and the laurel being invoked. My friend Amelia also pointed out that Proud Boys speaks to pride, like a lion's pride. And Nick Ulbrich has sent me a slew of syncs in this vein. We apparently just had Carol Baskin of Tiger King fame dancing to Circle of Life from the Lion King movie. I mean, she literally got booted from the show for her Lion King dance the night before the debate. And the same day, the debate and the Lion King announcement. So that was Disney producers doubling down on Lion King events 3 days before Trump reports being positive. That is crazy timing again, but it gets better. These two sports teams went head-to-head, the Lions versus the Tigers, within hours of the Trump Corona announcement. The Lions won, by the way. If you're looking to read into the symbolism, the Lions beat the Tigers. Alright, I want to thank everyone who has sent me all these updates and pieces of the puzzle as the story has developed over the weekend. Special shout out to Rob Sullivan, who's been keeping an eye out for an October surprise and has really stayed on top of this thread. And now, before we go, I want to show you a little something I noticed while rewatching Back to the Future 2 last week. You may recall way back in Sync News number 21, we pointed out that Bob Gale, the writer of Back to the Future, confirmed that yes, he did base the character of Biff from the alternate timeline on Donald Trump.
I don't see any resemblance.
We can see this with the gaudy aesthetics, the bully personality, and hell, his headquarters is even a casino.
And turned Hill Valley's dilapidated courthouse into a beautiful casino hotel.
I just want to say one thing. God bless America.
Think back to that Obama Lion King night if you want extra chills down your spine. Now, this movie was written in the late 80s, when a lot of things were known about Trump, enough to base a villain after him. But here's a really weird thing. Trump would not be known for the phrase, "you're fired," till many, many years later.
You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired.
That whole thing came up with The Apprentice show that he was doing 20 years later while Obama, he was doing that show while Obama was the one in the Lion King suit. So tell me, how interesting is it that in Back to the Future 2, before we are introduced to Biff's Trump impersonation, before we see the casino and all those Trump mirroring motifs, well, here's the scene that plays out.
You are terminated!
Terminated? No! No! It wasn't my fault, sir! It was Needles! Needles was behind the whole
And you
thing!
cooperated!
No, I didn't! It was a
illegal.
sting
And
operation!
you
I was
knew.
setting them up!
Read my
No!
thoughts!
Please, no! I cannot be fired! I'm fired! Ah! Oh, this is heavy.
Super bizarre synchronicity, once again confirming that we've slipped into Bob Gale's hellish nightmare of an alternate reality where Trump is in charge. Here's hoping we aren't stuck here for another 4 years. I'm ready to leave this timeline, and with